And I will begin. Well, hello everyone. This is Butterfly Basics with Coach Tom. I'm just going to go over some really basic stuff talking about butterfly. Kind of broken it down into 4 different parts as we're going through this. So as long as my slideshow works here, I have our 4 main points: kicking, timing, your upper body, and your breathing. Those are probably the simplest ways to break down butterfly and break down the stroke in terms of corrections as well as the functional mechanics of the stroke. So we're going to go through each little section of it as and talk about it, as well as watch some video, and I'll be jumping between screens as I do that. So I'm going to jump to the next slide, and the first thing is kicking. So I believe that butterfly is a kick-driven stroke, especially distance butterfly. I think that that's where it becomes much more kick-driven than it does in the shorter butterfly races. So 50 butterfly, you can usually get through it with a lot of upper body and power. You still need your legs, but the 100 becomes a much more underwater-driven race, but it's still a lot of upper body and using your legs. But then the 200 fly, you're really dependent upon your kicking to keep your stroke held together, as well as timing and rhythm and all of those components that you probably heard your coaches say over the past years that you've been swimming. So the first thing that I want to talk about is the dunk kicking. If you don't know what the dunk kicking is, it is how I describe butterfly kicking. And it's because it makes the noise of a thudunk, or a smacking noise of the water. I've had the kids demonstrate it, and what it is it's the air getting thrown down under the water from your feet and accelerating through the water. And I will show a video here in just a second, but it comes from the down kick, and it's because your feet break the surface, your toes actually have to come out of the water, then you lead with a knee bend, and then your feet are going to slam down underneath the water, accelerating all the way until your legs are straight, and then we go into the lift kick. So I'm going to jump screens here, and I am going to go to a different screen to share. So I'm going to pause this for just a second, and go to this screen and share it. So is everyone, Maddie, do I got my YouTube video up? Is that what you can see on my screen? Awesome. So as you're looking at this video, I'm just going to make sure to mute this video so you can hear me over it. This guy is going to push off the wall, and he's going to be doing what I call the dunk kicking. So right as he gets to the surface here, that's the knee bend that we're talking about, is your knees lead down. But if you watch him as he goes to kick forward, his toes are going to break the surface. I will do my best to pause it there. You can see that white water on the bottom right screen. It was my cursor here. This is what I'm talking about, where the dunk is. His toes are out of the water, and then he's going to accelerate his feet all the way down into that straight body line. His hips are up. He has a relaxed back as well. And then he's going to do what's called the lift kick. And the lift kick is driving your heels, calves, and hamstrings straight up to the surface. And you'll see that here as I continue this video. He doesn't on that kick, but he's going to do a big downward kick, the dunk, and you can see all that water. And then he lifts those legs straight back up. You can just see it right there. And that's what I was talking. Whoops. If you watch his legs in that right side of the video, the legs are lifting straight up, and that's the counter lever to what his hands are doing. So lifting them straight up and then back down. You can see all that air being trapped underneath his feet because his toes are breaking the surface of the water. Really good basic form kicking, and as you can see, that leads with the knees and then accelerates down to the toes, and this is in slow motion. And if you look up here on the top left video, you can really see how deep his kick gets as he comes forward when he's going through his stroke. So I'm going to switch back to my slideshow here, maybe. Going back to that. So those are kind of the key points of butterfly, and especially what you're trying to do with the kick. And where that becomes really important is in our distance fly race, the back 50 of a 100, the back 100 of a 200 butterfly, really focusing in on those. So I'm going to jump to our next slide, and then I'm going to talk about timing. When I teach butterfly, it doesn't matter if I teach you when you're a master swimmer, when you're an 8 and under, or when you're a senior. I talk about my favorite number to count to in butterfly, which is 4. And what that is that setting up your rhythm, but working on the strokes and adding them to your butterfly. So it counts it as 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And what those are is they're downward kicks. They're each time you're kicking. So as you're kicking on that, it's going to be a downward kick 1, downward kick 2, downward kick 3, downward kick 4. And that's where we want to set up our timing. And it comes from the counting. So as you are kicking forward on kick 1, that is the entry point of your hands into the water. So it's entry kick, well, simultaneously. And then kick 2 is at the finish, or as your hands are pressing through to your hips. And then you come back around. Kick 3 is entry kick, is the third kick is the entry again. And then the fourth kick is where your breath is going, or 1, 2, 3, and then breathe. And I'll explain that later as we get into this video of where those kicks come in. So I'm going to jump back to my video. So going back to my YouTube video. And I'm not really concerned about where this guy is breathing, but talking about his kick. So, I apologize. So as we split out into his stroke here, just bear with me. So it's kick down is the one finish kick. Kick entry, that's the entry kick. So that would be a 1. As you can tell, his feet are down. He's just kicked through, and his hands are entering. Kick 2 is on the finish of the stroke right there. Kick 3 is right there on the entry again. And then kick 4 here on the finish. And he's not breathing in on that stroke. So we'll see, that would be a 1 there for me. And it appears that he's not breathing in the video. So it doesn't apply to what I was explaining earlier in terms of where the breath goes, but you can follow along with those 4 kicks. So that leads us into the next part. And what I think, I said butterfly is a kick-driven stroke. So we're going to jump to where the kick leads us to, and that's our upper body. And I kind of broke down pulling into the upper body into 2 parts, pulling and recovering. So the first initial part is the catch. I think you guys have heard the coaches talk about the catch over and over and over again about when your hands enter the water. Catch phase sculling, when your hands are out in front. The catch is the first point in the water where our hands are grabbing onto anything. So that's the catch, and that's just part of the pull. Then as we load our hands down, we start to get into what's called the press, and that's when your hands are kind of underneath your chest and you're really moving your body forward with as much momentum as you can. And then the third part being the finish, and that's where your hands kind of go out or leave the water. I will explain it a little bit more when we go back to the video, but those are kind of our 3 basic parts. Then we go into the recovery. The recovery starts with the finish, and it starts with how your hands break out of the water. And I think a lot of people get confused here because they want to push their hands back and behind their back or their butt instead of pushing them out. And your hands actually want to drive in an outward motion. It's like you're almost recovering like a jumping jack. And I'll try and show that here in the video in just a second. But the finish is the start of the recovery because you want that. Then what I call it as the swing, or what we were talking about is as your hands come back over the water, you're actually swinging from your shoulders. You're not bringing your hands forward. You're not moving your elbows or your forearms or anything like that. You're swinging from your shoulders, and your arms should recover straight, palms to the ceiling as they come in, and then it goes back to the set, and that's where your hands set into the water, which then leads us right back into the catch. I'm going to jump to that other video again, and here we go. So I'm going to click right here. So right there, this is where he's setting his hands in, he's finishing his first stroke, and now we're going to talk about where the catch is. So right here, that's where he's starting to catch. There is a little pause there in this guy's video of the stroke, but he's setting his hands in the water, and now he's going to catch and start the initiation of the pulling phase. So the catch, and now that's all the way to the press, and where you're really pressing through the entirety of the stroke. And right there, the finish. So you can't see above water on this video, but as I'm going to try and back that up just a little bit and see if I can get a better shot of the finish. As he's going, his hands are even with his hips, and they actually finish from right there. They're going to push towards the sides of the pool. His right hand will be pushing towards the wall, and his left hand will be pushing towards the other wall. And you can see that as he goes, he finishes an outward motion to help start the swing of the stroke. So, oh, I've got a couple people joining the meeting, so I'll go back. And that is part of it. You can't see the above water recovery right here. I'm going to kind of jump forward into the video a little bit. I apologize. So we'll resume here. So is he, I'm going to jump ahead because I don't want the notes to be in there. Oh, maybe I won't. Right there, that was kind of what I was talking about with the finish there, is that very small little finish motion right there. So as he's getting to like right by his hips or his belly button, his hands are splitting and they're now pushing out instead of straight back, and his hands are going to swing from right there as he's finishing that kick. So right there as he's going back around. So those are kind of what those basic points that I was talking about with the, oops, something is, oh, there we go. So I'm gonna go back to my slideshow here. And those are what those points are of where that finishes. So the finish, set, and the swing. So don't have an upper body thing of what it looks like above the water. I would Google somebody like Michael Phelps would be a very good person to watch do the recovery part of it, where he finishes out wide, he swings his arms, they're straight, they're very low over the water. They don't want to come up. That's an optical illusion. The arms don't go up and around in a circle. They actually, like I said, swing around and very flat. So now we're going to go to the last part, and that is breathing. I think when it comes to breathing, oops, I've got a question here, it looks like. Caleb Dressel, yes, Rick, that would be a good video as well, to watch someone swim butterfly. When it comes to breathing, I think it's really important that we do two things. The first thing is you want a very low breath. And what do I mean by low? I mean right over the surface of the water. Your lips don't want to be much more than, an inch or so above the water. And that might even be a little high. You want to be very low to the water, and you want your breath to be very quick. So your exhale, which is really, really important in breathing, needs to be the entire time you are recovering. You want to be blowing the water out. So right when you get to the catch, you start to pull. That is where your head is going to come up and lift to catch your breath. So that video I showed earlier, right as you're beginning to catch the water, that is when you want to start sliding your chin forward to take your breath. That's the important part. And then by the finish of your stroke, back to where the hands are splitting, that's back to when your head needs to be back down into that neutral position. That's where you want when to finish your breath. So it's a very quick thing. You saw it. So basically during the press is the only time your head is up taking that breath. And then that leads us into our last point, which is rhythm or the pattern. I could announce it earlier as 1, 2, 3, breathe is the 4 count on that. And that's breathing every other stroke. That's how I would prefer the swimmers to do it, as I think that helps with body position, because if your head is down, your hips are up. The more you breathe, the more higher up the more your hips tend to drop. Obviously, if you watch Michael Phelps, he breathes every stroke. Well, he's pretty darn good at that. I think his track record of racing and competition kind of defines that. But that's the really important part, is when you breathe, you need to set your head back down, because it helps get your hips up higher. So how I would explain your breathing or your fly swimming, it would be 1, 2, 3, breathe. 1, 2, 3, breathe. And the reason you're breathing on that 4 count is you're breathing during the stroke and getting your head back down in time for that 4th kick in the sequence. So I am going to, and I just closed it out, I apologize. I'm gonna pull up another video of someone swimming butterfly, and I will count it out to what it looks like. And then I'm gonna go ahead and stop the video, but I will ask a few questions for anyone that has any. And if you have any video questions, please feel free to do so. I'm gonna pause sharing so I kind of, oops, not what I meant to do. I am going to go back to my video here. And my YouTube video is gone. So I'm going to just end that part there, and we will finish on that note. But I will open it up to any questions and answer them the best I can with what we talked about today in the basics of butterfly. So if you want to use the chat, you may do so. If you would like to open it up and open your mic up and ask a question, you may do that as well. All right, well, I'm not getting too much, so I will go ahead and stop it there. Thank you everyone for tuning in. I'm going to post this video on YouTube. I hope you learned something. Let me know if you like the live talk. Oh, I heard somebody ask something in the background. I could not hear though. No, maybe not. All right, again, I'm gonna wrap it up there. This video has been quite long already. So thank you all for tuning in. I hope you learned something that is the basics of butterflies. And as we get back to the pool, be happy to work on this with you, or your coaches will. And now that you know kind of the basics of it, when you're watching a video of someone like Caleb Dressel, Michael Phelps, Dana Vollmer, some of those great American butterflyers, watch them and you might be able to pick up that counting and that rhythm. In terms of a Phelps, his wouldn't be 1, 2, 3, breathe. It would be 1, breathe, 3, breathe in that scenario in terms of a counting and a 4 cycle, which is every other stroke. I do, as the 200 butterfly goes on, it tends to get very challenging. And so I will have people go two breaths in a row and then 1 stroke without a breath, as I think getting those hips up is really important and really crucial to swimming those races. So thank you to everyone for being here. I really appreciate it. And that is all for now.